Hello everyone, I am The Weather Dude, welcome back, and today I'm going to be giving my third winter forecast for this winter of 2024 to 2025. There will probably be one more after this where I will give my official final forecast, but I just wanted to give you guys the latest updates in this video. So be sure to stay tuned so that you know what this winter could look like for you, and of course don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Alright, let's get right into it here, starting off with the ENSO alert system status. This is basically telling us whether we have a La Niña, an El Nino, maybe an ENSO neutral pattern, and these three kind of handle the strings, if you will, about what the winter or any given season could look like across the United States. So ENSO neutral conditions are present right now. This is actually as of mid-November, but there is a La Niña watch still in effect because there is a 57% chance that La Niña could emerge over the next month or so. So this is the sea surface temperature map. I wanted to do a little point of comparison. So this is from November 1st. This was from actually my second winter forecast video that we did a couple weeks ago. But just to draw a point of comparison, so this is from November 1st, but I want you to focus in on this area. That's the Niño 3-4 region, okay? And that's basically what determines our La Niña, El Nino, or neutral pattern. I want you to take a look at that region, right? Keep an eye on it. Now I'm going to go to right now. This is now as of the 21st. Notice there's a little bit more yellows and oranges in there, right? So the sea surface temperatures actually have been on a bit of a warming trend. So we actually just slightly broke out of La Niña status, but we're kind of hovering around negative 0.5 degrees, which is basically like the threshold for La Niña. I'll show you that on the next slide. But basically the sea surface temperatures have been trending up a little bit. All right, so that's just something to keep a note of. Also, keep an eye on these sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Alaska, right? Because that could influence your historical and maybe even future jet stream patterns about what they could do for the west coast. And of course, look at the Gulf of Mexico and the east coast, still pretty warm there as well, at least warmer than average. So just some areas to keep our eye on over the next couple of months. So here's that map or chart I was just telling you about. So this is the Niña 3-4 index. Basically, this was the last video that we did, right? Sea surface temperatures were right around here, and now they're around here. So there's definitely been, since we've last spoke about this, a warming trend since late October and early November. But there was also a downward trend from August to October, right? That brought us into that La Niña. So it's always going to be moving around, right? But that upward trend is something to keep note of, especially because it, for a brief period of time, broke out of that La Niña threshold. So maybe it's not quite here yet, right? So it's basically knocking on the door, but La Niña is almost here. And you can see we're starting on a bit of a downward trend again as of the last couple of days. So here's a typical La Niña pattern just as a reminder. So we typically have, again, that jet stream comes down over the north central and over the Midwest. The colder air is held to the north over the northern plains. We usually have some wetter times across the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes, and usually some drier conditions for basically the Gulf Coast and the Southwest. Maybe some wetter conditions for the Northwest as well, because there's usually blocking high pressure here that will basically send these low pressure systems over like this, which is why the Northwest usually gets hit so hard, as they are right now, or at least yesterday they're having that bomb cyclone. So that's a perfect example of what we're seeing here in this typical La Niña pattern. Here's a chart. Basically, this was issued this month. This is basically kind of giving the probabilities of whether we could see any given pattern. So La Niña, neutral, and El Nino. But for November, there's actually a 58 or 57% chance of a La Niña. You can see right here. But the probability for it by the time we get to December and January will be above 70%. So that's when we think it's really going to be, set in stone. But then the chances start going down. February, March, and even by March, there's actually a greater than 50% chance of a neutral pattern. So maybe that takes hold, and then maybe that continues from spring into summer. So when we have a weak La Niña, which we do right now, when to go over these maps with you, you might have seen these before. These are talking about the precipitation anomalies to show what this winter could maybe look like for you based off of historical data. So basically, the southern third of the United States typically sees less precipitation. The Rocky Mountains, of course, typically sees more, like I said earlier. The Great Lakes, while it's not widespread, we typically see slightly above average precipitation in those areas. But again, the south, basically from California to Florida, even up to the mid-Atlantic coast, typically on the drier side for weak La Niñas. How about temperature? Well, temperature really emphasized across the northern tier, where we typically see way below average temperatures in a weak La Niña. But basically anything like the Great Lakes, south central on westward, basically all of those areas typically see some sort of below average temperatures during at least based off this past data of weak La Nina winters, while the southeast has generally been on the warmer side. Alright, so here is the temperature forecast for winter 2024 to 2025. As you can see here, slightly below average temperatures to below average, right? There's a higher confidence in that darker shade of blue across the northern tier that we could see some, more cold plunges, some polar vortex dips even, right? So that's going to be leading to those colder temperatures. Meanwhile, in the south, right, again, basically that southern third, maybe from like Southern California over to the southeast, that includes the Gulf Coast and up to the mid-Atlantic, right? We can at least see some slightly above average temperatures with a greater probability of that near, the I-10 corridor along the Gulf Coast, basically from Florida to like Texas, maybe like as far west as like El Paso, Texas, and maybe as far east as Savannah, Georgia. How about the precipitation forecast? Well, again, because the storm track is always going to be coming in through the northwest like this, because the jet stream will come in like this. So that really amplifies that storm track through the northwest, which is why you can see some slightly above to even moderately above average precipitation, as well as in the Great Lakes, where that storm track will also be, right? So maybe for the Great Lakes, maybe for states like Michigan, Wisconsin, maybe cities like Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, all areas we could really see that emphasized above average precipitation. And where that jet stream kind of avoids, right, where it doesn't quite dip that far, will be for the south, right? Because typically during El Nino, we would have a subtropical jet come right through here to enhance our precipitation, but it's not looking like we're going to have that, obviously, because we're in a La Nina, the opposite. So we're going to be seeing some slightly below average temperature or precipitation, and again, along the I-10 corridor, we can see that below average, right? So greater probability of below average precip, and that actually extends a little bit further north, maybe to, cities like Dallas, Fort Worth, right? Maybe even up to getting close to Atlanta as well. All places that we could see, slightly drier times throughout the winter. Again, you will still get your storms. It'll just be less often than normal. All right, before we get into our overall forecast, we're going to take a look at the snowfall forecast. All right, so you can see across the northwest, the Rockies, northern plains, and the northeast, all areas that could see above average snowfall this season. Right, and we've already been seeing that, right? There's a storm that just made its way through the Ohio Valley into the northeast. That's wrapping up today into tomorrow, right? And there's going to be potentially a Thanksgiving storm that could affect these areas in blue next week, and as we head into Thanksgiving. All right, but you can still see here, again, above average snowfall because of those, the enhanced storm track, the more cold plunges, just sets the stage for more snowfall. Meanwhile, the opposite, right, down towards the south, the mid-Atlantic, right? I would say the mid-Atlantic's more of a wild card, but especially for the southeast and the south central and even the southwest, where that storm track's going to avoid you guys, I think, and where the jet stream's further north, so the temperatures will be warm as well. So you combine warm temperatures and less precip, I just think the chances for snow are, below average, right? And again, if you're asking why states like, like South Texas or even Florida are in the below average snowfall if they typically don't get it, it just means that your chances of snowfall are even lower than they already were before. All right, now for the overall forecast, all right? So we're going to take a look at here, going from west to east. And again, there will probably be one more update after this one. Here we go. So wet and stormy conditions. All right, for the northwest, again, with that amplified storm track, I think wet and stormy conditions are already starting to take hold, and I think they could even last through the winter. Rocky Mountains, you guys never disappoint. I think your best snowfall. I think you guys are good for this one. You guys, especially during La Nina winters, you guys definitely don't disappoint. Warm and dry conditions across the southwest. I do think that's going to be a key spot there, because I definitely do think with the storms coming into the north, we have had some storms coming to Northern California, but the southern part of the state is missing out here, right? And that warm and dry, those warm and dry conditions could even extend again along the Gulf Coast as well. Arctic plunges, all right, this could take hold across the north central again, with that weaker jet stream being more flexible, maybe going more up and down. That's going to allow for those cold plunges to really get in there. And I do think we can even see some cooler times, maybe some more snow as well. Maybe northern Oklahoma, western Kansas, eastern Colorado, right? Just maybe not as cold as, your friends to the north. Colder times anywhere in that purple shading, places like, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Ohio, okay, St. Louis, even Kansas City, right? All places that could see some colder times. Again, some significant cold, but not as, we're not talking like negative 10, 20, 30 wind chills constantly that we could be seeing in the northern tier in that darker blue if those polar vortex plunges were to take effect. Wintry mix, right in this winter battle zone, usually across the Tennessee Valley. That's usually normal. We have the drier air. Maybe we can get some cooler dips here, which is why I didn't put those yellow areas in the warm and dry. Just dry, because while I do think we'll be warmer, there's maybe a chance we could get some cooler dips in there. Active lake effect. We had a warm fall, so of course those waters are warm in the Great Lakes. And when we have the colder air rushing over it, that's just going to lead to a good lake effect snow season there for sure. Less snowfall for the mid-Atlantic, but again, it's in a gray because I think it's kind of a wild card. Because again, there could be some storms, and there probably will be, but it all depends on their track. Because usually we have storms that kind of track off to the north, leaving you guys with more rain and less snow. But there will be occasional snowstorms as well for the East Coast, especially in the interior Northeast. I think you guys will have the best chance for snowfall out of this. But I definitely do think we will have some snowstorms along the East Coast for sure this winter. So that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am the Weather Dude signing off till next time, and I will catch you guys in the next video.